Good morning, fight fans. We've made it. Noche UFC. Inside of the sphere, we've got 10 fights. We've got title fights. We have 5 out of 10 fights currently favored to end inside the distance. The main event of the evening features Murad Dvalishvili taking on Sean O'Malley in what will likely be a chaotic affair. Let's take a look at these 10 fights. But before we do, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Remember to subscribe to the channel. What we do here, if this is your first time visiting the channel, we break down each matchup and we try to do it in a thorough fashion where we do each matchup justice. And we are going to bring a level of intensity today that is not often seen. So let's get things kicked off here. We are going to talk about the first bout of the evening where we have Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Arichi Lang. Arichi Lang coming in as a plus 650 underdog, and he is going to attempt to bring the fight to Raul Rosas Jr. I suspect that Arichi Lang is going to throw the kitchen sink at Raul Rosas Jr., who is growing up before our very eyes. Raul Rosas Jr., he is growing into his physique, into his frame, starting to add new wrinkles to his game. His facial structure, like no other. It may lend itself to submission defense. It may lend itself to an inability to be KO'd. But I will say this, Raul Rosas Jr. can be had on the feet. And if Arichi Lang is able to find the button multiple times on Raul Rosas Jr., then he could be in a world of trouble. But let's be honest with ourselves here. There is a huge grappling discrepancy here and ability when we look at both of these fighters. Raul Rosas Jr. is a dominant grappler who is going to implement his will. And there are no certainties in this game, but I believe that there's a very high likelihood of Raul Rosas Jr. grounding Arichi Lang, draining Arichi Lang, and locking up a submission here. Also, don't be surprised if you see Raul Rosas Jr. rain down some ground and pound when he has Arichi Lang in an advantageous position. I'll be picking Raul Rosas Jr. inside the distance. I think that he does lock up a submission here. Now, second fight of the night, we've got Joshua Van taking on Edgar Chairez. This line has blown out. Joshua Van coming in as the minus 252 betting favorite, and Edgar Chairez, I was a little surprised to see him make weight. You also look at Josh Van coming in on very short notice here after getting knocked out last time out. You listen to his interviews. This is only a 22-year-old kid who doesn't have a nutritionist. In previous interviews has mentioned that the one thing he does is he eliminates pork from his diet and will simply drink water. He eats rice and his traditional diet, but doesn't make many changes when he's in fight camp. Whereas you have fighters from other gyms who put in significant work, and they have to rely on nutritionists, and their strength and conditioning program is a little bit different from Josh Van. Josh Van is a striker through and through. He's a very small fighter for the flyweight division. And one concern I have is if Chairez is able to get his grappling going. This is a Mexican fighter in Chairez who is going to be coming out guns blazing and looking to close distance and make a chaotic affair inside of the octagon. I also have concerns about Josh Van. If Chairez comes out like a ball of fire and attempts to catch Van, that is a possibility here. The longer this fight goes, even though Van is on short notice, I think that he has a massive striking advantage here. He's clean and he's able to add volume throughout the fight and can hit the target. I'll be picking Josh Van, but there are a few red flags here. The short notice bout, the 22 years of age, lack of experience, and also you have a fighter who's feeling his oats, who wants to get that sour taste of a loss out of his mouth. And he's taking on a Chairez who is going to have the crowd backing him, walking out with that Mexican flag. And that will be a theme here throughout this breakdown. So give me Joshua Van, but this is a dangerous fight for Van. Donnie, thank you for tuning in this morning. We have a lot of folks in the chat here. Professor Chaos, the coffee is flowing. The coffee is also flowing over here. We're here for the Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown Show. Noche UFC. Moyes, thank you for hopping in and joining me for this stream. Excellent. Evan, thank you, my brother. Thank you for coming back. I told you I was going to bring the intensity this morning, and I will be doing that as we continue through these matchups. Let's talk the third fight of the night, where we have Caitlin Souza, who I liken her to a Walmart version or a service merchandise version of Jessica Andrade. Caitlin Souza, her frame and her physique has changed dramatically since she came into the mixed martial arts world. Watch back some of her early fights. She's a fighter who is a marauder by trade. She's not a tactician, and she's taking on a Jasmine Yargari, who is coming in as a minus 600 betting favorite. Yargari is a fighter who is going to have the crowd behind her, who has the boxing, the vigor, the intensity, and the will to win. We've seen against Lucindo, this is a fighter in Jasmine Yargari who is going to go for broke. She is going to go into the fire, and Caitlin Souza, her path to victory here is to try to get her grappling going, but she doesn't have the volume. She doesn't have the precision, and she, I believe, is in a world of trouble here against Jasmine Yargari, who I'm going to be picking to win, and I think that she gets a late finish here. I think that there's going to be a TKO victory late for Jasmine Yargari. So give me the Mexican fighter there in that matchup. Si se puede, my brothers. Now, this is a matchup that I have had on the fridge for quite some time. Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Manny Torres. Manny Torres, who is a fighter, one of the largest fighters for the division, a fighter who is growing up before our eyes. Now, one thing I mentioned, you can't trust what you haven't seen, or can you? Manny Torres, we don't know what we're getting out of a fighter who could potentially fold in the second or third rounds. Similar to a Tom Aspinall, we haven't seen a fighter of Manny Torres's caliber go deep in fights. Could he gas out? Yes, there is a high likelihood there, but could he finish Ignacio Bahamondes early with a chaotic, unpredictable strike? I believe that is the more likely outcome here. If Ignacio Bahamondes is able to survive the early onslaught of Manuel Torres, then he's a live underdog here. And you look at the odds, plus 103 for Ignacio Bahamondes. Yes, he's the more precise striker, but Manny Torres, unpredictable, extremely strong, has a killer instinct that you don't often see. He is risk averse. He will go for it. And I'll be picking Manuel Torres to walk away victorious in this matchup. It should get the crowd erupting, frothing at the mouth inside of the sphere. And I want to pause here and make sure that you are nourishing yourself during the event. Please post some pictures of what you'll be eating during the event. I want you to pay homage to the Mexican heritage as we root on these fighters inside of the sphere. So give me Manuel Torres to walk away victorious. Oh, wow. Look at this. Drizzy's saying Marab beats up O'Malley and O'Malley is overrated. we'll get to that fight shortly. But before that, let's continue our way down this card. Norma Dumont taking on Irene Aldana. Irene Aldana coming in as a -105 fighter. And you saw Norma Dumont. She's able to make the weight, 136 pounds. There were concerns that this fighter was no longer able to compete in this weight division. Remember, she was up at 145 pounds at one point. Norma Dumont, that is. Aldana, better striker here at distance. And I suspect she's trained up for this one. Dumont, very difficult for me to trust. I believe that both of these fighters have horrific striking defense. They rely on toughness, especially Aldana. You saw against Nunes, she was getting lit up like a piñata. And, oh, man, Norma Dumont, she's going to have to take this fight to the ground, I believe, to be successful here. But I'm going to be rolling with the underdog, Irene Aldana here. I think that she can win this fight and she'll have the crowd behind her. We know she's tough as nails. She has great cardio. Give me Aldana to walk away victorious in that matchup. We are working our way through this card. I want to pause and thank everybody for tuning in on this fight morning. I told you I was going to bring the intensity here, and I also bring a winning tracked betting record, 6 consecutive years of winning. Now, we are on a 3-fight or 3-card winning streak here, and we're going to look to add upon that as we continue to march through this card. And let's look at flyweights. We have a wild man in Lazy Boy, Ronaldo Rodriguez, who in previous matchups, you heard Dominic Cruz mention that this fighter is willing to stand his ground and take what comes at him and march forward and get in the face of his opponents. We saw it against Bondar, and we will likely see it again against Ode Osborne, who has a bunch of physical advantages. Ode Osborne, the longer fighter, the more precise fighter who is going to be attempting to possibly lock up a submission here. He's mentioned that when they were at the face-offs. Also, man, you look at Rodriguez, he's there to be hit. He's there to be hit through and through. He will take some to give some. And in this matchup, I am going to be picking the fighter that is less skilled but has greater will here. I believe that Ronaldo Rodriguez, this is going to be a very nasty, chaotic, ugly fight. And you look at Rodriguez, he is not a technical fighter. He relies on feeding off the energy of the crowd, and he does have a lot of fights under his belt. So I'm a bit surprised that he is a bombardier, a fighter who is a marauder, who's going to take a few, to give a few. And don't be surprised if there's blood on the octagon canvas during this matchup. Ode Osborne has been finished in multiple fights recently, and man, confidence is a real thing here. Confidence is a real thing, and I think that the switch is going to get flipped against Ode Osborne. I believe that Ronaldo Rodriguez is going to walk away victorious, but I will say that Ode Osborne has the tools to knock out and to eliminate Ronaldo Rodriguez. He's a sitting duck out there, Ronaldo Rodriguez. Look at Bondar was toying with him at times, just couldn't get it done. And Bondar, man, Bondar really faltered. I don't believe he's with the promotion anymore. So give me Ronaldo Rodriguez to win. Now, let's see what we've got here. We have a number of other matchups, and this is a fight that has MMA Twitter torn. We've got Esteban Ribovics coming in as the +175 underdog, taking on the golden boy, Daniel Zellhuber, who is a Mexican fighter and is going to be in a potential world of hurt if he is caught by Esteban Ribovics. Ribovics is a dangerous, dangerous fighter on the feet. He doesn't have a reach advantage in this spot. Daniel Zellhuber is the fighter who's the much longer fighter. But once Zellhuber gets going and finds his rhythm, finds his range, he is a prospect to watch out for. The problem here is Esteban Rivovics, if he's able to get inside, get in the face of Daniel Zellhuber, cause Zellhuber problems. Now, I'll be picking Daniel Zellhuber here. I believe that you watch back the weigh-ins, you see the massive amount of weight that Daniel Zellhuber has packed on since both of these fighters weighed in. That is something that that I noticed. I also noticed the longer the fight goes, Zellhuber gets better and better and better. And I believe that the crowd, the Noche UFC crowd, I believe, is going to will Daniel Zellhuber on to victory. Now, could this be a dangerous fight? Could Zellhuber get knocked out? Yes, that's always a possibility here. But I think that the longer this fight goes, Zellhuber is going to be pouring on the volume. And also, Zellhuber, if this fight does hit the mat, has a big time advantage. The problem is, can he get it there? He doesn't necessarily have takedowns, and it's going to take a mistake on Esteban Rivovics' part to have this fight end up on the mat. So give me Daniel Zellhuber there. Now, we have, oh, look at this. Moyes is rolling with Esteban all day. I will say that this is a cause for concern, that Zellhuber is there to be had on the feet. We've seen lesser fighters be successful against Zellhuber at times, but not for the 15 minutes. And go back and watch the Prado fight. I believe that Prado is a prospect to watch out for. He does need to fix a few wrinkles in his game. And I think that that is what we're going to see here, that we'll see the more proficient technical fighter pull away the longer that fight goes. But there are no certainties in this game. Now, this is a matchup that was sent to us from the MMA gods. We've got Brian Ortega taking on Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes coming in as the minus 178 betting favorite. And this matchup is a matchup that pits two grapplers against one another. And Ortega, you saw he wasn't able to make it to the fight last time out, was sick. And he is the older fighter here. He's lacking some momentum. The Yair Rodriguez fight, Yair almost had him out of there multiple times. So I have a bit of concern for Brian Ortega, especially early. I think that Lopes is the fighter to watch out for the early in this bout, but the longer it goes, if Ortega's able to find his range, he's a much more fluid fighter on the feet. Lopes wants to get inside, throws uppercuts, comes up top, but what he's trying to do is somehow, some way end up on the mat, and that's when he shines. But you also have Ortega, who has slick submissions through and through. Watch the open workouts, and you'll see Brian Ortega, his ability to transition from submission to submission. Both of these fighters are incredible submission artists, and I don't think this is necessarily going to be a striking affair for 15 minutes. I think we will see these fighters get the grappling going. I think this line could be potentially closer. I was torn on this fight. I wanted to pick Ortega, but I believe this is an instance where you will see fighters from this gym that Diego Lopes comes from causing and wreaking havoc here. I think that Lopes is going to walk away victorious in what should be a back and forth fight, and the scrambles on the mat. I look forward to seeing the scrambles on the mat. I cannot wait for this matchup. Now, we were getting to the co-main event of the evening, but before we do that, we have a bunch of other comments here. Ortega. Oh, is that a trash can? Oh my goodness gracious. We'll use kicks to manage range. Find that range. KO Lopes. You think so? Drizzy. Oh, the GOAT. Oh, wow. I flipped to Lopes. Hope I'm right. We will see. We will see. We will see. Now, let's talk co-main event of the evening. Let's talk trilogy. Let's talk trilogy. Now, Valentina Shevchenko, she looks incredible on the scales. You talk about a fighter who wants to get it back, a competitive spirit within, a fighter who was winning both matchups, both previous iterations of this fight. And she's taking on a Alexa Grasso who will have the Mexican crowd behind her. Valentina Shevchenko, after the latest loss, mentioned that she felt the entire crowd and the judges were against her at a Noche UFC event, and she yet takes a fight again in the same atmosphere. Why would you do something like that? I wonder if her hand was forced here, because that is a concern of mine, especially when we talk about the judges. Can we trust the judges in this matchup? I believe that Valentina Shevchenko likely will get ahead early. She has a huge grappling edge, especially from a wrestling standpoint. Now, could Grasso have shored up some of the holes in her game? Yes. I believe that Grasso is in much better physical shape as well here. You see she's much more toned for this matchup, and behind the scenes is being trained up. This is many, many minutes of being in the octagon with each other there. So they are very familiar with their strengths and their weaknesses. And we know exactly who Valentina Shevchenko is at this stage in her fight, in her fight career. And I have concerns for Shevchenko that the striking, especially the punches, they didn't have the power that Grasso's did. She wasn't able to hurt Grasso much. And the submission attempts, Shevchenko almost caught Grasso multiple times. But this is a case where the younger fighter who may be dropping rounds early, I believe that there's a potential live bet opportunity on Grasso here. I think that Shevchenko deserves the respect from a betting perspective, that she still has the skills. She has solid coaching. You see how much this means to her, but this was one of the toughest fights for me to pick, but I'm going to be picking Alexa Grasso here. I think that this is a changing of the guard moment, and that the longer the fight goes, that the crowd is going to will Alexa Grasso on to victory here. I know they can't get into the octagon to help her, but they do influence the judges. And on Mexican Independence Day, where we have the Noche UFC card inside of the Sphere, and the audience is going to be rooting on the younger Mexican fighter who is, I believe, less skilled here. I'll be picking Alexa Grasso. Man, this is going to be an interesting fight. Moyes says Val looks older. Grasso has all takedown entry data now. Interesting. You think so? And there have been multiple mistakes on the part of Valentina Shevchenko that have cost her in previous fights. And even though she's been the minute winner, man, it only takes one mistake to turn the tide of a fight, like we saw with Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold. Similar situation in that matchup. So give me Alexa Grasso in a close bout. Now, one thing I must mention about that fight, I think it does go late. The over 4.5 and fight goes the distance are in play, because both of these fighters respect one another and know what they're bringing to the table. Now, main event of the evening. Main event, my brothers. Main event. We are here. 135 pounds. The most talent-rich division in all of sports. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Sean O'Malley. This line has continued to close, and you have Sean O'Malley coming in as the minus 130 betting favorite, and he's taking on a Merab Dvalishvili who's waited his entire career for this moment. A man with momentum who is a machine. He's a fighter. Man, we've seen Ray Longo and Matt Serra turn the ignition on for this fighter. Now, Aljo, a teammate of Merab's, was unable to get his grappling going, was picked apart at range and systematically destructed before our eyes, went down and was unable to regain his equilibrium and got pounded out. One thing I'll say, Sean O'Malley, he is a precise striker, and he will make you pay as you close distance. If this fight was taking place inside of the UFC Apex, I would be more apt to lean towards the Merab Dvalishvili side. But since this fight is taking place inside of the larger octagon, there'll be more room for Sean O'Malley to utilize his footwork. And also, he is able to make people pay. The problem also about a larger octagon is if there are takedowns in open space, fighters do not have the capability to move towards the cage, to use the cage as a as a as a way of standing up in fights. You are stuck in the middle of the octagon, and then you have to rely on your grappling game to get you back up to your feet. And yes, Sean O'Malley does have a submission threat here. If he's taken down in open space, I have concerns. But I will say, Merab, he is there to be had on the feet. We've seen him against multiple opponents get caught, get almost put out. And I'll be picking Sean O'Malley in this matchup. I think that even though this is a vine-ripe tomato matchup for Merab Dvalishvili from a wrestling standpoint, he could come in here and toss Sean O'Malley around like a rag doll. And especially late, this hits the third, fourth, or fifth round. This could be a case where you have sheer exhaustion setting in on the part of Sean O'Malley, and Merab Dvalishvili thrashing and ultimately TKOing Sean O'Malley late. But I think that what's going to happen here is Sean O'Malley is going to find the target and put Merab Dvalishvili's lights out, and I'll be picking Sean O'Malley to win. But I understand where the Dvalishvili backers are coming from because they've waited for this moment. We saw what Dvalishvili was able to do against Jose Aldo and others, stifle opponents, make it ugly, not the most visually appealing fight. And that is a path to victory. We know there are no certainties in this game, but I'm leaning and I'm going to be picking the favorite here, Sean O'Malley, to walk away victorious. If you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button and liking the video and sharing a authentic, honest comment in the comment section, that'll be a big help for us. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And before we get out of here, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section. I want to thank you on this fight morning. Let's see. We've got, let's see. Biggest mistake from Valentina is not acknowledging Grasso. Her delusion will be her demise. You think so, Professor Chaos? That is a possibility. And you know what it is also? Fighters who are great, that's one trait that they have. You look at Ilya Topuria, the guy, his self-belief is through the roof to a point where it appears to be delusional. And sometimes that is what leads them to get through tough times. I will say that. Val's been leading the dance both times. Yes, you are correct. Merab rocks him on the feet, then slams that clown. Wow, Drizzy. Merab's season, father's plan. That is a possibility. You're on sugar, Evan. I do see the possibility of a knockout. Thank you. It's great to be back, Evan. I told you I'm going to bring the intensity, and I brought it today, and I'm going to continue to bring it. So thank you, my brothers. Have a great festive day. Thank you, Chronic. And let's go get what's ours, my brother. One fight at a time. Thank you.